Anyway. Welcome to Café Anyway.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
2892, episode 2892, and Mike Matthews at Café Anyway, somewhere in podCastro Valley, the last place on earth.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
In the land of Ameritopica, and it's Mike Matthews. Hey, have you found out about this podcast through an interesting way? Maybe you got some kind of review somewhere. I don't think so. I don't think anybody goes there to those places that check out where reviews on podcasts, but
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Reviews on the things that you're thinking about spending $50, $100, $1,000 online on,
Daily
or maybe a restaurant,
Podcast.
because restaurants are so dang expensive these days, then you want to know beforehand, is this going to be worth the money I'm going to put down? Well, online reviews. Yes, the online review has gotten so big over the years. And on average, about 30 to 40% of online reviews are fake. That's according to estimates from consumer advocacy groups and TheStreet.com. But that will soon change. The era of fakes. We live in the era of, let's see, it started with fake news, then deep fakes, cheap fakes. Now fake online reviews is about to come to an abrupt end. The Federal Trade Commission has officially finalized a new rule which will go into effect not this month, next month, but the month after that, in October, and it will ban fake online reviews in several different ways. They not only waste time and money, but also pollute the marketplace and divert business away from honest competitors, said the chair, Lena Khan, from the Federal Trade Commission. Fake reviews can be generally generated through multiple controversial practices, and these will be deterred under the new rule. First, the rule will prohibit reviews and testimonials from people who do not exist. Well, that would be helpful. I think we should have done that long ago.
And here's today's podcast picture.
The podcast picture is of, so my lovely lady friend and I, we went to this restaurant over the weekend in this cool place in Oakland. It was such a nice place in Oakland. My lovely lady friend was like, are we still in Oakland? And yes, Bay Farm Island, otherwise known as Bay Farm Isle, something like that. It's right across from Alameda, the island of Alameda, which technically is an island, but really naturally is not an occurring island. The late great Basil the Boxer and I went to this spot many times and walked around. In fact, I had not been there since I went there with him, so it was a great day of just remembering what a great, wonderful dog he was. And so my lovely lady friend and I ate at a restaurant that I have never eaten at. I've always wanted to. I can't think of the name. Something like La Penca Azul. And it's on the water. There's like a little canal that is only open to the houses that are on this waterway. I think it's an HOA. But there's ducks and swans and geese and storks and all kinds of birds floating around. And you can have delicious Mexican food. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. And the salsa, wow. But that's a plug. And the slug was... there was really no slug. I guess, all in all, my slug to all restaurants.
Life grand.
To all restaurants is that, why? Why are they so dang expensive? And I'm at that age where, I can remember far back to when things didn't cost as much. Of course, my dad, he would remember, I remember when things cost a nickel. Well, now, I remember when things cost under $5, but hey, that's long gone. And you and I, or you, if you are young, will go, I remember back when things were under $20 or $25. Now it's in a couple of years, that'll be even higher. But the first rule will prohibit reviews and testimonials from people who don't exist, which includes reviews that are generated by artificial intelligence. Also, reviews from individuals who never experienced the product, business, or service. In addition, the rule will block businesses from providing compensation or other incentives for positive or negative reviews. Also, insider reviews, such as those written by individuals who work for the company, that will also be prohibited. Now, a lot of this, I heard, is already illegal, but the Federal Trade Commission is making it official to add an extra underline to make it a little bit more of a warning. Danger, Will Robbins, danger to people that think they can get away with it. But, there was one person I was listening to who's in one of these organizations that monitors this kind of stuff and says, well, the platforms themselves should take more responsibility. The Amazon.coms, the Googles, they should take the initiative to go through themselves and weed out the people that are fake. Does Yelp do that? That would be my first question. Oh, and it is illegal to pay. You cannot pay to have a review taken down, is what this lady also said. But then, this will also be banned for misrepresenting that a website or entity that they control provides independent reviews or opinions about a category of product of services, including their own. Lastly, intentionally buying or selling bots that generate fake followers or views for a special media account will also be barred under the new rule. The final version of this rule in this News Random report comes after it was first proposed 2 years ago. It appears to be part of President Joe Biden's latest efforts to end corporate rip-offs, which involves promoting competition and protecting consumers in the American economy. I think he knows where most of us know deep down, once he's gone, if the guy gets in, not the woman, but the guy gets in, we're really not going to have any monitoring of this sort of thing. As we go outside of Café Anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast, somewhere in podCastro Valley, the last place on earth in the land of Ameritopica. Online reviews can make or break a business, so it's no surprise that some companies have resorted to using a deceptive tactic to maintain a 5-star rating. About 76% of consumers, according to a recent survey by Coupon Birds, said that they always check reviews before making an online purchase, and roughly,
Like scavenger hunt.
as I look around here, 93% said that online reviews have impacted their buying decisions. So it is a big thing. And other news going on, this might worry the Biden administration. Another strike going on. Up to 17,000 AT&T workers in the southeastern United States went on strike recently. Workers in Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, and South Carolina, I sound like a Huey Lewis song, are involved in the strike, which the union argued in a news release is necessary to protect unfair labor practices committed by management during negotiations for a new union contract. Cars honked as about a dozen strikers stood.
For your entertainment, the one, the only, Mike Matthews.
I got interrupted by an introduction there. Did you see that? So cars honked as about a dozen strikers stood on the corner of Commerce Street and 4th Avenue North on Saturday afternoon, wearing T-shirts and holding signs in Nashville. I had some friends in Nashville over the weekend. They are telling us, our bargaining team, they don't have the authority to make changes or bargain for the contract they are working on. Okay, there you go. I am not part of a union, so I don't really know the ins and outs of what, but a lot of you do. You are part of a union. You know what these situations are. You know how tense it can get. You might lose a job. You might not lose a job. You're trying to get a job with better benefits.
Yo, the Mike tip.
My tip to you is hang in there. Chinese e-commerce giant JD.com. I knew a JD years ago. Oh, we have John Deere the engineer here sometimes, whose initials are JD. But JD.com's quarterly profit nearly doubled, while revenue grew slightly amid fierce competition from Alibaba Group and PDD Holdings. This from the Wall Street Journal. The Beijing-based company said that the net profit for the second quarter rose 92% from a year earlier. The bottom line beat consensus estimates. Adjusted net profit, which excludes share-based compensation and fair value changes of long-term investments, among other items, rose 69%. Retail sales, which makes up the bulk of the company's revenue, rose a little over 1%.
Wow, shuts, wow.
Wow shuts wow. Their big competition is from Alibaba and PDD. I don't know if people really... I know I bought something off of Alibaba, which is like an Amazon years ago. PDD I've never bought anything from. But there's JD.com doing well. And not doing well are the folks that are trying to live in San Francisco. A regional bond to build housing will no longer appear on the ballots in November after the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority, or BAFA, unanimously voted to pull the measure recently. The $20 million bond promised to provide funding for up to 90,000 units throughout 9 Bay Area counties if voters approved it in November. It would have been funded by additional annual property taxes. Oh, and believe me, that gets all of us that own property really angry when we hear that sentence, because we pay so much.
The Newsbleed section.
It's so much so we bleed. We pay so much, our wallets bleed. But that's the Newsbleed section. In June, BAFA unanimously placed it on the ballot. But since then, concerns about the electability of the bond measure emerged from some of its proponents. Even before the agency voted to place the measure on the ballot, BAFA's polling showed that voters' interest in the proposal had stagnated as they remained concerned with inflation and high taxes. See, even Californians have a breaking point. And finally, I watched Seth Meyers. He's got somebody on there named Amber who does a really funny segment, and she was making fun of Boeing about how anything they make falls apart because, like, the Boeing spaceship and Boeing planes all having problems. And she was sitting on a stool that fell apart, and she goes, "What was that stool? Who made that stool?" Oh, and there's a big Boeing sticker on it. Well,
Wine. Well, I like
The whiny white man wine list.
Boeing can't make anything. Whining is what I do. 'Cause I'm white and I whine. No, what's something... We take a detour from the Boeing story for a second. Speaking of flying, though, a mother was kicked off United Airlines flight for accidentally misgendering a flight attendant. This, according to the Daily Mail. A widowed Texas mother says she was only concerned with getting her son and her 75-year-old mother back home when she was kicked off of a United flight for misgendering a staff member. Jenna Longoria claims the trio were removed from a flight from San Francisco, back to San Francisco again, to Austin, Texas, after she accidentally referred to a female identifying employee as a man. It's a man, baby, yeah.
That's a nightmare of a show.
That was Austin Powers. That's what that nightmare of a show was. So that was an interesting bit of, well, that airline stuff story. But back to the other airline story, that United Airlines CEO says that Boeing is on the right path because now they got CEO Kelly Ortberg at the helm. Ortberg. Why isn't my last name Ortberg? I bet I would have more listens if it was Ortberg instead of Matthews. But Ortberg's engineering background brings renewed confidence to the troubled company's future. Kirby
First of all, I just want to thank everyone for joining us here on this show. This is great.
Well, you're very welcome for being on the show. And I don't know who you are, but it's been great having you on the show. Get off. Just kidding. Oh, what is this? Let's see. Oh, okay. I'm going to get to my whiny white man thing. Or this is what whiny white men whine about. Oh, and Kirby and others believe Ortberg's decision to be based out of Seattle will give him a hands-on approach to fixing the company, fixing Boeing, with all the problems that they're having. The Chicago-based airline United is a major operator of Boeing aircraft. It currently has nearly 500 narrow-body planes developed by the company, with several hundred more on order. Well, whiny white men are saying things like this. Albert Mohler says something that I would say sounds like a whiny white man wine list type thing. President Biden's decision to step aside and not run again for another term has upset the entire equation of the 2024 election. A lot of people, July was a crazy month, a very historical month. You just lived through a very historical month, my friend. Don't forget it. Don't take it lightly. Don't take it so lightly. You just experienced something huge. Just like someone who you just got through survived a car accident. You're like, wait, what? What just happened to my country? A presidential candidate that used to be a president for us was nearly killed. A bullet went whizzing past his head. Yes, it nicked his ear, but it could have hit his head and he'd be dead. Then we had a very old man, a little bit older than the other candidate, but an old man who's getting older and appearing to be very, very old, deciding, nope, I'm not going to run. And he did what he could. He legally could do. He said, I'm going to have the vice president. I'm not going to run. The vice president's going to run. That's exactly what Lyndon Johnson did in 68, a little over 55 years ago. Democrats are now looking to have a different standard bearer with Kamala Harris. Nobody as recently as, say, 3 weeks ago saw this coming. This editorial came out at the beginning of August. We also need to recognize that our elite media, here we go. This is all they do. This is the whole thing. Hey, Mike, how do I know if I'm a Republican? You hate the media. You just hate the media. Oh, I thought it was I hate taxes. No, you hate the media. Oh, I thought it was I hate that they don't have prayer in school. No, you hate the media. That's what it is. It all comes down to just that. It says we need to recognize that our elite media, which they also call it the left-wing media, they also call it the left, they call it the legacy media. Basically, they fit the letter L in there somehow, any way they can. I don't know if that's a thing. But yes, the elite media are playing right into the hands of the new Democratic strategy, because it's a bunch of people in the shadows pulling the strings. Media outlets are and have been now starving the Republican campaign media oxygen, pushing all the stories on the Democratic side, which the people on left-wing shows like the Midas Touch would strongly disagree and say, hey, what about all the coverage that Trump is getting? And a lot of it isn't as negative as the people on the right are thinking. There's a lot of stuff that just throws out his agenda. It's spreading the news without him having to. This has always been his thing. Trump's always had that ability to get his message out there without paying a dime. Well, now here's Albert Mohler complaining that Democrats are getting the same treatment, the same benefits, the same free ride. He says, just understand it's all free media. Of course, the elite media are overwhelmingly liberal. They're talking about, number one, what interests them. And secondly, they're talking about what they see is serving their own political interests. No, I'm not talking about a vast conspiracy. It's bigger than that. He didn't say, no, I'm not talking about a vast conspiracy, and say something that's not very conspiratorial sounding. He went and said, he doubled down. It's bigger than that. It's just a vast social reality, he says, and it's playing out to the benefit of the Democratic side. We need to understand that. We need to understand Albert Mueller is just as, well, I'm hoping that the hat on his head made out of tinfoil is worth a lot, because they don't make tinfoil anymore. It would have to be aluminum foil. But yes, hope it's working for him. And then another person on the whiny white man wine list, although she's not a man, is she says, Carol Platt-Liebau, in a unified display of middle school mean girl lunch table theatrics. What? Do we bring in now Rachel McAdams and what's it? Amy Siegfried, Lindsay Lohan, and the rest of the gals from that popular movie. The Democratic establishment is what she's calling a bunch of mean girls. Of course, including the media, has decided to label J.D. Vance as weird. Oh, they've insulted J.D. Vance. Let's see. What does the guy that J.D. Vance is running with, what does he call people? Let's see. Crooked Joe, Lock Up Hillary, Crooked Hillary, Kamabla. What are all the things he does is like a mean middle school mean girl? And why are we insulting middle school females? That's not nice. As the party that believes you should choose your sex and celebrates the mutilation of minors, it's calling other people weird. I guess that's an ironic thing. But that's not what's most disturbing, she says. What should concern us most is that to many leftists, J.D. Vance really does not seem weird. Think about what that means to Kamala Harris's supporters. A straight white man who lifted himself out of poverty, served as a Marine, and is devoted to his wife, 2 children, and country actually does seem weird. Which wasn't J.D. Vance more in a press role when he was in the Marines? And then he's criticizing Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate for the Democrats, as not seeing any war, not seeing any theater, any events, action. And then you have everybody's calling back to John McCain, who said it doesn't, as long as you serve, that's all that matters. So this argument just goes round and round in circles. It's what I said on the last podcast. I don't know if you caught it. I said it kind of quick, but I said, anybody who tries to defend any politician ends up looking like an idiot. You may think you have the most perfect candidate in the world. Heck, you may have even given birth to them or raised them or whatever, given money to them. But in the end, you trying to defend them makes you look like an idiot. I found that out long ago. I loved my mom very dearly, but she was very, very, very conservative and would just regurgitate all the same stuff she was hearing from her very, very conservative friends. And then I would listen to her and I'd hear her contradict herself. And I know she would want to get into a little bit of people like to talk politics because it's a little debate. It's a little fun conversation, mental gymnastics, that kind of thing. And I would do that with her. I'd want to engage with her and have a good conversation and some intelligent conversation going.
Later that day.
That is now 2 days in a row that has happened. The Adobe Audition crashed when I was talking about Carol Platt-Liebau. I guess some Adobe Audition angel does not want me to talk about her and causes it to crash. The whole point of the thing was Carol was talking about how the Democrat Party is name calling, and they shouldn't be, and that's wrong, and it shouldn't be allowed. But at the same time, the irony that I see is that then the candidate for the Republicans is name calling all the time. So it just goes to show that people that are defending politicians, that are defending political parties, always end up looking like idiots, no matter what they do, no matter how they try to make it logical or anything like that. It just does not work out for them in the end, is what I've noticed. But you know what I also noticed is, look who's here. Hello, my gosh, it's Madame Rootabega. I found all of that interesting. Ooh. Do you like to dance? Yes. Do you like the podcast that you are currently on? Yes. Do you like to call people names? No. Did you like Mean Girls? Don't answer that, because then we'd have to go and do the whole thing again. She left anyway. Mean Girls. I didn't see the new one. I didn't quite understand what was going on. Maybe someone can explain that to me. I have a phone number. Here it is.
Call Mike at the Café Anyway hotline. Area code 510-228-4640. Will you shut ups? Liberty Nation Freedom Phone for All.
And look who else is here. Hello, Mike. This is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere, the engineer. Mike, did you figure out that it was Daniel Powder that sang the song Had a Nice Day? Had a bad day, you mean? Yes. We were trying to figure that out. And yes, Had a Bad Day. Daniel Powder was his one big hit song off of his debut album, In the O's. And yes, thank you. We remembered that. Now everything's fine because we figured that out. And that's what we do on this podcast, is figure stuff out. Next show, it's going to be the wonderful Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer, and with all things to do with the podcast picture, the past podcasts, where to find all that stuff and more, we go to the mainframe and hear from A-Frame.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye.